Today, we're going to talk about sinking funds. Now, they sound boring. Let's call a spade here. They're boring, but they're beneficial, and I'm going to tell you why, and also what they are. Hello everybody, my name is Laura Ann Moore, and I post videos all about money, mindset and motivation to help you get financially confident and help you learn how to use money as a tool to live your best life possible. The sinking fund is basically a strategic way to save money, and you can use it to put money aside for things that you know you have to pay for. So that could be expenses that are coming up, but it could also be your short and medium term goals. So it's a form of saving. You essentially figure out how much it is that you need for the year, divide it by the number of months, and that is how much you should be putting aside every single month. Now, I have a separate sinking fund as I do to saving for my short and medium term goals, and this is why. My short and medium term goals are things like going on holiday, buying new camera equipment, doing a rehaul of my winter wardrobe, for example. They're things that I'm working towards, maybe buying a house. I'm not, but you could have the same goal. Whereas a sinking fund, I kind of see as stuff that you know is going to happen and is more of an expense. So I would use that pot of money to buy people's birthday presents, buy people's Christmas presents, for my dentist appointments. Stuff that you know is going to happen throughout the year, but you might not want to use that money, or you might not want to have to pay for it out of one single paycheck. But the end goal is essentially that you're taking a little bit of money out of your monthly, weekly paycheck, putting it into a savings account, and you can use that money for when those things come up. Now, the difference between a sinking fund and an emergency fund is an emergency fund is for emergencies. So it's for stuff that you don't know is going to happen. Your car might break, the washing machine might break down, you might lose your job, or your income might be decreased. So your emergency fund is for emergencies, but you don't know at what point you might need it. A sinking fund is more for, you know, the shit's gonna happen, you know Christmas is happening, you know birthdays are happening, you know you're gonna need to go to the dentist and sort your teeth out. And if you don't, probably need to book a dentist appointment because they're important. So essentially, a sinking fund is for the known stuff, an emergency fund is for the unknown stuff. So I did a savers challenge on Instagram, like I think it was like mid last year, in mid 2021, and people were putting away £1, £2 or £3 every single day into a little savings account, and we did that for about 3 months, and it was like a mini sinking fund. We were basically taking a bit of money every single day, normally you do it by month or by week, and putting it aside. And then by the end of it, I had like £358, I think it was, that I ended up using to, when I went to Cornwall, I think, and everybody was messaging me being like, oh my god, this money really adds up, and now that I need those things, the money is just there. And that is the good thing, because it builds up over time, and then that money is just there to use, so that you don't have to borrow or get into debt for Christmas, birthdays, appointments, stuff like that. Obviously, you can set the goal for your sinking fund at whatever you want, and you don't have to work out an exact amount, like I know I need X amount in my sinking fund. You could just say, I've looked at my budget, I've got a section for financial goals where I know that my short-term money goals are coming out, my investing is coming out, I'm putting into my pension, but I'm going to chuck an extra 25 quid a month into a separate little sinking fund account that will cover said costs. Now, the thing about personal finance is it's very personal, it's whatever works for you, and everybody does it differently. So you've got to try it out and do it in your own way, but I highly recommend creating a sinking fund for yourself for all those little known purchases that are going to happen throughout the year, because then they don't come out of your disposable income within the month and your spending budget, because you already got the cash for it. Winning. And as you both know, as we all know, there is like nothing worse than when you have to pay for something and you go, shit, I actually don't have the money for this. That money in that savings account is specifically for something. Where am I going to draw down the cash? Oh, hello, Mr. Little Sinking Fund. And you're probably thinking like, surely this is just the same as a savings account. Surely it's just the same as having savings goals. And I know I kind of mentioned it a bit before about how I have it separate for my short and medium term savings goals and sinking funds. And the difference is that a sinking fund is essentially for stuff that you know you're going to need to pay for that are expenses. and that would normally come out of your budget. Whereas a savings, your short and medium term goals, that money that you're saving in a savings account is towards a specific financial goal, not necessarily an expense. And if you set up a separate sinking fund to having a savings goal, it allows you to see them completely differently, as this is the big goals that I'm working towards: holidays, house, car, etc., setting up a business. And this is the expenses that we have to pay for: the dentist, the Christmas presents, the birthday presents. So I think it makes sense to keep them separate. And you'd be surprised how quickly a sinking fund can add up. And then it makes you feel so much better knowing you've got that little bit of money there for those things that you know inevitably are going to happen, that aren't necessarily fun things to pay for. Although I do love buying birthday and Christmas presents, but that's beside the point. And having that money there is really key. Now, what some people like to do is they like to break their sinking funds down into sections.
Or if you're American, sectors.
This is where we're getting really specific. You might have a house sinking fund. You might have a car sinking fund. You might have a Christmas gift sinking fund. You could separate it out if you wanted. It's up to you. Whatever works for you, whatever works best, try a couple of things out. Sinking funds is something that I've only really done very recently, like within the last few years. I've saved money in a savings account since I was like 18, but sinking funds are, yeah, it's something that I've only done very recently. And the aim isn't to try and generate any interest on it, or for it to be large amounts of money to fall back on, but it's just nice having that little pot of money to go, oh sweet, so-and-so's birthday's coming up, dip into that, or oh, we need some furniture, you know, let's say you had a furniture sinking fund. And then depending on what type of saver you are will depend on what type of account they go in. Really, the idea is that you'd want them in an accessible account so that you can use that money straight away. But if you're not so confident with not dipping into that money for general spending, then you might want to put it in an account where it's locked away, and you don't have immediate access to it, and maybe you have to give some notice, or you have to go to a specific place to pull that money out. So it depends if you're a saver or not. Whatever works for you. But I hope that helps, and yeah, happy sinking funding.